it's Lynn here. I am a heritage researcher and curator. So basically, I am on a mission and on like a race against time to revive and document disappearing heritage food festivals in Singapore. So I sort of made it my life mission recently. And then I joined this workshop back in 2020, thinking that maybe I should try writing about myself because I've been sort of spending a lot of time sort of telling stories of others. And sometimes it's actually very difficult to tell something about yourself. So I really struggled through this writing process because there are a lot of things that I was thinking, should I disclose or should I not disclose? Will it be understood or misunderstood? So I guess I'm glad I did it. It's a very interesting kind of collaboration in some sense. So maybe I'll talk more later. So self-introduction back to Julian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, we should just go on, but never mind. Yeah, I'm Julian. So like I had the privilege to take a step at interpreting Lynn's writing. I guess I am kind of a visual artist, and I deal with more existentialist themes. Like, who am I? What am I doing with my life? This kind of themes. But my conclusion is quite absurdist, which is I'm pretty much nobody, and then art is just a way to resolve this existential dread of mine. So yeah, and then I quite specialize in Chinese ink kind of art, and but I also do installations quite often as well. So I try to marry. I mean, I actually don't really see art in terms of like whether it is a particular medium or not, but it's just easier for people to understand when I explain it that way. So installation is one form that basically I can just put in anything and then just call it installation. Then so that's pretty much what I do. And of course, we're here today to talk about our sort of collaboration, or rather our conversation between your piece of writing, which Artist Caravan, I think Xiao Yun, who then sort of meshed it with me. So what happened was, she just, Joey and Xiao Yun, they just send over the link to your writing, and then ask me whether I'll be interested to take a look at it. And then, of course, once I read it, I felt like some kind of connection. And then I think even if you see our background, there's some kind of connection, right? Or some red thing. Yeah. So even though yours is like a template-ish kind of background, right? But then like mine is
mine's gonna be related to the writing.
Yeah, okay, cool. But like, I mean, yours is a photo, right? You're not there right now, are you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, yeah. So anyways, I think, it's a preview of how we connect. So maybe you could share more about your writing, what it's about, what made you want to write about it, and then then everybody will know what happened after. Everything. I mean, everything started from there, right?
Yeah. So basically, it's quite interesting that we are having this over Zoom, so that I've got this virtual background. So I'm at home right now, but then my virtual background is like my second home. So, which is what I wrote in my memoir. It is this clan association called Gong Zhao Wei Gun. It's a Cantonese clan. So in the memoir, I wrote about my sort of first encounter with the clan association, how I sort of through coincidence when they went to my school to teach martial arts, and then after the immersion program ended, so I ventured to this clan for the first time. So then that was sort of like the most of the memoir is more of a recount of that portion. And then I sort of really like leap through time, and then just at the very end, like what's happening now kind of thing. So through the memoir, you actually see me like when I was like 15 years old, the kind of eyes, looking around. Like for instance, this particular background you can see is really a very like old, very classic looking kind of clan design. So this is really one of the like jaw-dropping encounters for me at the first time. And I went in, and then so if you read the memoir, you see the sort of, I think I used the motif of the mirror quite a bit, because this is also quite salient in this clan, whereby when you go in, you can see really giant mirrors, and then every time you make a turn, when you walk up the 4-story building, you see a mirror, which is like a huge one. So, and then when I think at the final part where I sort of describe about what made me intrigued about martial arts, about these hidden symbols within like the routine itself. And one of the actions has this stance called the maiden looking into the mirror. So I think that sort of like sort of echoes into how I keep reflecting about myself, and in some sense, I think I was also writing in a sense of me at that point of time feeling very misunderstood or not understood. And then there's this very interesting thing going on, but yet I do not know how to express myself or share with others. And it's only very recently, where maybe in this 2-3 years, maybe you see me more in the media talking about this kind of stuff. But previously I'll be more in the background, or not really in background because I do have to do public performance, but not really saying kind of thing. Yeah. So that is my journey. And frankly speaking, I really had to thank Pearly from NLB, because initially I would not have submitted this memoir, because I think if you look at it, it's very much like a draft. I feel everything, I mean, in life is like work in progress kind of thing. So for me, especially if a memoir is something very personal, so I had no intention of making it sort of like public. Even though this is not my first memoir, I wrote my first memoir when I was in university, like before going to work kind of thing, and just try to recap what happened in life kind of thing. But that one was very personal, and I didn't show anyone else. But whereas this is something more public, so a lot of my friends also in the memoir workshop, they also wanted to create a book, and then they keep asking, "Hey, Lynn, why not you just submit yours and then we can have it in the book together?" And I keep saying like, no, because it's really not ready. Because even through the feedback that Verena gave, is that it's like a huge leap in time, and I didn't really like address a lot of things that happened in between. But I think given the 3,000 word kind of limit, I also didn't want to cut out on the details, because I think it's in the details that you see why I see the world as it is. Yeah. So if I'm going to write like in really like chronologically, then it's going to be very long. It might be really a book already. So I hope this kind of addresses some of these questions that readers might have in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does address some of the questions that I had in mind actually, which was when I read her memoir. I mean, I read your memoir. Actually, so basically what it was about, Lynn described when she first went to this Hui Guan, and how old was she back then? How old were you back then?
15 years old.
Yeah, like as a 15-year-old girl, actually, right? Like she was there because she was invited to take part in the martial arts training, the kind of programs that they have there. And then she wrote about her impression of like going up the stairs, and like she described how it was a bit daunting for her. And then so it was very descriptive, giving details such as like the Chinese characters on the steel above the door became clearer, like it really described the scene for her. And when I read it, I could a bit imagine like what it was like going up quite the staircase, and somehow it was during an evening time and all that. So yeah, like that was interesting for me. And also I wanted to ask for the first, like another question I had was because I mean afterwards I got to know Lynn better. I also stalk her a bit, of course, like Google her and yeah, she is, like she said, like I guess in her past few years, become more of a spokesperson for like Chinese culture and our shared heritage and all that. So she's visible on the internet. And then very interesting life in the sense that she takes part in this wushu stuff, and then like she also organized like food festival. And what made me curious was like, if you have to choose a memory, like why do you choose this one? Like, is this where you started? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I also got to know that, you will travel to all different places in China, and, went to all kind of festivals over there as well. And yeah, like would you share more about that, please?
So I guess this is the clan is really a turning point in my life. It's something that I have different feelings towards it as I grew up. So initially it was really it's a very interesting place, and yet I feel at the same time embarrassed to share with people or what I do. And then there was also a point of time when I was doing a PhD, and then it became my safe haven, because that was my only time that I could take a break and not care about stuff. And also a clan being a very relational kind of place rather than transactional, it gave me a whole new experience of what this world is, or even what Singapore is. Because I guess what we have in mind or impression about Singapore, if you ask any tourists, it will be like, oh, Singapore's very modern, everything's very clean. But I guess when I interact with a lot of the foreign, because my school is actually a French school, so a lot of my classmates are from other countries. So what I like to do is always to bring them to the clan to experience what Singapore is truly like, rather than seeing what you see as a tourist. So that's what I always do for the 4 years that I was there doing a PhD. So then, so I think that gave me also another, because when I do this kind of tours with them, it's like a mirror to me as well, to see what others see or view, and then how I can change the kind of impression. And then, of course, the major turning point will be my passing of my grandparents. And then, of course, the clan also was sort of like another kind of like a comfort for me to tie across that. And then it also gave me that kind of motivation to start doing something. And I think what I know more about Chinese heritage now, many of it started from the clan. Yeah. Because I mean, of course, since young, I love Chinese kind of thing. I like watching like 成语故事 kind of thing. But I think nothing as compared to being involved in it, and then from being a participant to become now someone who drives something, to create something, so as to ensure that we can pass on something for our future generations. Yeah. So so living the clan is really a very important place in my life.
Cool. Thanks. Like a bit related to what you just said. But I also think, I mean, I don't mean to, to start anything, but one impression I have of clans, right, is that they tend to be a bit more patriarchal, because like especially family clans, we follow our fathers or our mothers and all these things, right? So like I wanted to ask you more about that as well, or rather it's also one of the major responses that like I received. I mean, I felt when I read your piece, the big theme, I mean, at least for me, it really stood out, was the issue of feminism. I don't know if it's something that features features in your life, like is feminism a big thing, okay, or like it was just coming out from this piece, or it's just coming out from me because I'm feeling some feminist issues. But so I wonder, you see. So and like for a young girl to be sort of very involved in the Huiguans, in a lot of people's impressions that, it's a lot of old people, especially senior men, and then emphasizing on, like traditional but Confucianist and therefore a bit chauvinist kind of perspective. Yeah, so what's that about?
Okay, I think you're pretty spot on in some sense. So one thing that I was struggling when I was writing this memoir is that I left quite a part out in some sense. I mean, that was something that I shared with Verena. And then I was telling her, I think I'm not ready to share this story. Because initially we were thinking between two stories. I was thinking, okay, maybe I write about my grandmother, when I was growing up, my grandmother kind of thing. And then that was true. I mean, what you mentioned about patriarchal and this kind of like male dominance in clans, that is true. But I guess it also highlights to me that ultimately it's about people. And once people are having the right mindset, we can make the change. Because I think most clans, yes, they are patriarchal in some sense, but I guess over the years, I feel a change. I see a change, but slowly. And a lot of times it really matters having people in the clan to help pave the way. So I guess right now, having experience, so I didn't want to talk too much about the part. I mean, it is true, especially a female doing a martial arts, in a traditional martial arts. It's not any like wushu kind, it's the traditional martial arts in a very male dominant clan, and then earning their respect, because now I'm actually the vice chair of that department. So I guess I'm also glad that people gave me the chance to prove myself, and then from there win respect. Because I think ultimately, females, I mean, in some sense, you can see that in the world, not everywhere have gender equality as yet. I mean, even in Singapore, it's not really there as yet too, right? So what more about clans? But I guess my experience is also that now me being in the position, then how is it that I can help make the change so that more females feel that they can be welcomed, can change that image? Because ultimately, I mean, even like in job application, there's still this kind of stereotypes happening. So what more in anywhere else, right? I mean, it's perverse in all countries. I mean, in all aspects of society. So, yeah. But in general, yes, I am quite a feminist in some sense. Yeah. So when I went to India for the NGO thing, I was helping in terms of women empowerment, because being a women in India shows them that some things can be possible. So sometimes it's like seeing is believing. Once you see a female like young and then traveling, you may then aspire to want to do something as well. So of course, I do not think that I really impact them as much, but I think this is also one of the little things that we can do to sort of help empower more women.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I have this chance to respond. And just a little snippet of thing to share that I noticed from this year's news. I think in April 2021, because I just Googled it. Okay, that I think Singapore Recreational Club, right? After 137 years, only this year, okay, did they vote to allow female members to have the same rights and privilege as males. So this is Singapore Recreational Clubs, which is like, I guess the Angmo thing, right? But I mean, I just had that thought, and then when I read the news, I was like, whoa, actually Singapore is like very chauvinist, that like Singapore Recreational Club, which is a big club and big and old club, right? It took them so long. And then but at the same time, you doing what you're doing already now, it does sounds like actually the clan is a bit more advanced than the Singapore Recreational Club. So yeah, I guess,
but I guess my clan is also sort of like an exception, because if you look at our board of committee, the committee, more than half are females. So we are the forefront in thinking compared to many others. So, but I guess sometimes you just need to be that role model. It is possible. And of course, there are also discussions of constitutional changes. Because ultimately, it's still very patriarchal. It is still. I mean, Chinese, right? Our surname follows the father's.
Yeah, I know this problem. So and okay, so maybe from here we link into my problem with feminism. So the deal is like, actually I mean, I've never really been like a rah feminist, like actually this work is my most feminist work. I mean, the other, previously I did one which was just a small painting, but this work, I did put a lot of thought into this issue because of you know, the feminist roles lah, you see. So it's like I'm glad that, you know, now we have the option to go after different careers and to come out on Zoom and then talk about feminism, right? It itself is an empowering thing, and so on. That said, that the traditional roles are also still responsibilities as well. You know, like you know, the homemaking and the cooking and things like that, right? Like and we only have like 24 hours, right? So it's a bit like what's that show? Smile Mona Lisa Smile. I don't know if y'all catch it, but it's on Netflix, I think. So it's about like, you know, while there are greater options, there are also greater responsibilities and also pressures to sort of excel, you know. Yeah. And I think that we are also in a generation, accepting that we are from assuming that we are from the same period, right? Like where we are a bit between between generations, like our parents may not have had that the same wide ranging options as we have as women, right? You know, like that's one. But then they try to move the boundaries, and then they hope that we can move the boundaries even further. Does that make sense? So it's like, okay, let's say my parents' generation, right? Like my mother, maybe she will think that like she didn't have the option to chase after certain things because of you know, all the chauvinism around her. So she has this expectation that I will, you know, go for even more these other things that she couldn't do. But at the same time, she still has inherited like all the chauvinist traditional vibes, right? And then she's also like, okay, you also need to do all these things. So it's like, wow, tough, man. So with that thought, and then when I received your writing, yeah, and then like actually the first statement, the first sentence that open your writing, right? It says 一个女生为什么要练到这么晚才回家? Which means like, why does a girl have to practice until so late then come home? I mean, it's English translation, but yeah. So this was the opening line, and then followed by, I heard my mom's disapproving voice as I unlocked the house door. Then that's why I'm like, okay, man, I get you, man. You know, like, okay, ons, you know, like, I mean, I get it, like that there is that, yeah, you know, you got to work hard, but then you cannot come home too late, okay? Yeah. So, so with that in mind, that's how it really clicked for me lah. And then as you say that, you were saying like, you know, like work, you know, doing what you do, chauvinist, you know, martial arts, and then traditional martial arts, and then, you know, they're being very, how to say it, I mean, it's traditionally a male thing, yeah, that you must have had to fight against the, you know, not fight against but, you know, push the boundaries. Yeah. So in Chinese ink, actually it is not that chauvinistic. Like, it is an accepted thing that like female can, you know, practice. However, there are still chauvinism stuff around lah. So for instance, like being praised to say that, like, how to say that, certain, like maybe somebody would say that my characters like 看起来不像女生的字，看起来像男生的字。Then you'd be like, thanks, I guess. like, you know, yeah. No, it just means that, like, yeah, you know, you're as good as, your writing is as good as the guys. And then you'll be like, okay, thanks, you know. Like then after that, of course, the person who said it may not have meant it even, but I mean, may have just been being nice in his perspective, or whatever. But of course, it plunges me into some existential, like a few days, like until now I cannot resolve, you know, like, yeah, is it really? That's one thing. And then the other thing is like it's also like 琴棋书画, you know what I mean? Like the image of a lady is like, oh, you can like, you know, play very zen, then in the aircon room all the time, then okay, sorry, not in the aircon room all the time, macam in the aircon room all the time, even though you're very hot. Then like 美美的啦, like elegant, then like, you know, hold the pen brush, and then you can play the music, and then just have the look lah. But then like being married, and then like, you know, cooking some fish, and then like I'm just like smelling like fish, right? And then I'm like, this is not 琴棋书画at all lah. Come on, this is life. Yeah. So okay, with all these thoughts, right? And then with your thing, and then on the way, so I was thinking about like this what to do to do your artwork, right? And then that's how I came, you know, everything just came together in the installation piece that I created lah. Yeah. So the what I did was sort of like a presentation of my studio, you know, or it's something that I've done before, like presenting parts of my studio. But this time I deliberately wrote this Pi Pa Sing, which is this poem. Where I wrote down the short summary somewhere. Okay, yeah. So this Pi Pa Sing is actually about it's a poem by Bai Ji of the Tang Dynasty. It's about a highly skilled pipa player who moved from the capital to a more remote region after marrying a trader who was often away from business, and thus she lived lonely. So actually the poem is about this pipa player, very beautiful in her prime. Then like when she was in the capital in her prime, then like so the poem described like she's like describing her own story, right? That yeah, when I in my heyday, then like, oh, people long queue to come and see me, then I'm so hot, like I'm so famous and so popular, and like, you know, all the young men wanted to marry me, but I didn't. But then one day I grew old, and then nobody wanted me anymore. And then so I married to this businessman, and then like now I'm playing pipa lonely, and then thinking about you know, what's life, man, you know. Yeah. So so that very long monologue. Yeah, that's my take on feminism. and that's what like I thought about, and what went in lah, you know, about like training until very late at night as well because of my calligraphy and all that. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry for the long monologue. I tell you, I can just go on and on. That's why I needed a plan. Yeah. Okay, now next thing.
So I mean, I want to respond a bit because without listening to what you just said, I had a different I didn't know what's the thought process beforehand.
Sure.
So when I first saw the artwork, the first kind of impression that came to me is like, wow, it's like 很 cheap, man. It's like because there is like a lot of there's multiple dialogues happening, and I call it like a 四度空间, you know, like 4-dimension space, kind of, like 跨时代, you know, like now versus Tang Dynasty, because there's poets from Tang Dynasty, and then 跨界 in some sense, because they're in China and then we are now in Singapore.
Yeah.
And also 跨媒介, because the medium is different, because it's like a response to my memoir, and then yours is a more artwork kind of thing. And also, in some sense, I felt that it was like because of the way this way post was sort of done, is there's this 跨心灵 kind of 跨心灵世界 kind of, because like two worlds of complete strangers, and then because memoir is usually something very personal, and then now this some other stranger is responding to it even though I've not met this person before. So I think there's this very interesting kind of closeness that I felt. Is there's this kind of like 我懂你 kind of feeling. So it was like, wow, chimps. but okay, now my question for you is that would you have preferred to have met the author before your artwork?
Yeah. So actually, the short answer to your question is no. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to meet. Even though it was like Joey, they all asked whether I want to. But like the poem actually included this line, 同是天涯沦落人，相逢何必曾相识, which is translated to like both of us are vagrants in the universe, actually like wanderers in the universe, right? So meeting now, we have known each other. So I thought this poem, including this line, is very apt because you and I, we don't know each other. Like I mean, I felt the feminine vibes from your memoir, not as in feminist vibes, but like issues, kind of like all the questions, right? And then I also feel like, wow, I also got a lot of these questions. And then like this Tang Dynasty, very long ago, people got these questions. And then that's why I felt like, just pulling it together, that these questions aren't going away lah. Okay, like, because I think it also struck me that like you're somebody younger than me. You see, like I think your date of birth was released somewhere, but yeah, so or it's in one of the Googleable things lah. Okay, but yeah, so I was like, wow, okay, so this like Tang Dynasty, 100 of years ago kind of person have these feminist problems, right? She also 练琵琶 until 很晚，只是她是孤儿。Like she was an orphan, so her mother didn't ask her why she come home so late. But but I imagine, right, she was practicing a different art. You are practicing a different art. I'm practicing a different art. And then I think we didn't need to have meet, and like I'm glad to hear your response that, because if we meet, then we talk, right? Then after you see this artwork, then you'll be like, yeah, man, I get the vibe, right? Then I'll be like, yeah, that's because I told you, right?
Yeah, it's totally. I think it'll totally remove that very interesting chemistry that's happening. I mean, this actually because of this not meeting and we are strangers. That's why there's this interesting dimension that adds that chimness to it.
Yes. So it's like when I read your memoir, then I'm like, I get these vibes, right? Then I want to I want to keep it that way. I want to keep that like I got these vibes from reading your memoir, rather than I got these vibes from reading your memoir and then I talk to you and then it just gets like, maybe it's because I talk to you. Then I mean, of course, that's a different way of approaching this assignment or this project. But because I already got the vibes from your memoir, then I'm like, yeah, don't need to meet. Like okay, like let me incubate this these ideas, and then that's my take on it lah. And then that's why even like I wanted to keep all these things that I said, right, like to this session as well, because like actually like my take, right, it's a bit not so happy, not such a like, yeah, the world's beautiful kind of thing. But then like I didn't write that, reveal so much of that in the artwork statement as well lah, because
I got it.
Oh yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I was like, yes, I understand.
All right, man.
that 同是天涯沦落人 like, okay, wow, 很好.
Yeah. So that's why it's like it has that lonely vibe, then with the clock ticking in one corner and then like on the light. Yeah. So it has that like how to say, I mean, I did try to put that sentiment inside. It's really writing. I mean, I did write that calligraphy until late at night, like right alone, and then wondering what to do with my life. Yeah, so I try to put it inside, is it? So got the
I was like, then what is the imagery? Because I like to know. So when you're doing this calligraphy, were you alone in a dark room and then it's only this yellow light or imagery like?
Yes, you see this studio I am in now. Yeah, I write here, and then
was it dark? And then I don't know.
It's not dark, but it was late at night. It was like midnight-ish. Yeah, I mean, the lights are on now. Okay, so it's not with a small yellow light. But my clock, right? I call it the guardian of my studio.
Aw. Aw.
So like I said, I do like installations of my studio sometimes, yeah, like representations of it rather. And then like I'll bring this clock around, lor, like yeah. So the installation is sort of like, you know, even though people, I mean, because they're the library, right? So people may not get it, right? So like let them have some calligraphy to see lah. But actually with an installation, it's more like you know, it's more autobiographical, you know, like yeah, like I'm there, you see. So that kind of response to your like autobiographical memory as well.
You know why? Because why I ask a question? Because one imagery that I often have when of myself training at the martial arts, I mean at the Clan Association, is me on a rooftop late at night, and then there's this flood, this white floods of the light, and then I'm this like black silhouette just down there. So it's like really nice contrast.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, right? When I read your memoir, I did have that image. I did have that mental image. Because in your memoir, you did talk about, say, how you train the train, you know, you train at the rooftop, right? And then like how there is also like a kind of altar at the rooftop, and then because it's late at night, then I imagine it's like orange lighting, and then yeah, that's why I chose the orange light.
But it's white light lah, but also
yeah, but in my mind lah, you know, what, you know, it's like some kind of shop house kind of place, yeah. So
I think yellow adds also some kind of like warmth to it lah.
Because I think I know why I imagine it yellow, because I imagine that when I was 15, then maybe the street lamps was yellow. Right, like as in the
It
street,
still
the
is.
street lamps. No,
It
now
still
street
is.
street lamps are turning like white already right now. Now it's turning white.
I think 你看到曙光了, that's why.
No, street lamps are really turning white. Like they are turning okay, but anyways.
I'll respond with it. So
yeah.
It's a long time since I've really read Chinese poem for a long, like closely read it. In the past, I studied Chinese, but it's a long time since I do that. More than 10 years. So okay, so just now you sort of described your process of this poem. So it came from the 同是天涯沦落人 first, right?
It didn't exactly, I mean, like why I chose this one. Okay. So like for me, right, I know you haven't asked your question yet, but let me just interject. Like, I unlike you, right, I'm not really immersed in Chinese culture as a kid. Yeah, I'm not like, you know, like 讲华语 very good one, that kind of things. No, but it's more that like as I grew older, then I realized that if you ask me to eat Chinese food or Western food, I prefer to eat Chinese food. Like you know, so I am like being more conscious of that, making that choice as I, you know, like going lah. And yeah, so this how I chose this. Yeah, I don't know a lot of Chinese poems, but this is one of the few I know, and I like yeah. Then I thought that it fit and it comes together lor.
Okay, so then maybe I'm overthinking, because I'm wondering, or maybe is it subconsciously there's some kind of elements that maybe you can relate to Bai Ji, or maybe there is some differences, or maybe because I think there's some kind of like because the female in that FIFA player in that era, she is more of like accepting of fate.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I think I'm a bit more positive in some sense,
yeah,
like changing the environment to sort of like govern my own destiny kind of thing. So I'm not sure. Was that part of your thought process, or maybe it's just
yeah. Okay, so I was very cognizant of the fact that like this Bai Ji, right, is male who's telling the story. So this story is being told from a male perspective. So I was thinking about it. So and how I felt about it, and how I relate to Bai Ji, right, is this thing. And also the reason why I do Chinese Ink is because I used to be a public servant, right? And then all these Chinese Ink calligrapher and all that, all of them also used to be public servant. So so it's like people ask me like why I choose Chinese Ink. So one reason is because I see all these public servant, they don't want to do public service, then they go and do Chinese Ink, right? Then I'm like, maybe there's something there for me lah. So that's why I come along, and then that's why I read the few poems that I read. It's really true. Like if I happen to know this character, then I read, and then like what is it about and all that. So this Bai Ji, he was a public servant, and then he was from the capital as well, and then like he gonna, you know, don't know what happened to him lah, and then like, you know, he's assigned to these outskirts. Maybe he has a job, maybe he doesn't, has a pension or something, and then he cannot enjoy beautiful music for a long time, you know, because outside of the capital, then like it's like in Ang Mo Kio, you cannot go Esplanade and watch. It's different, right? You cannot watch the same type of things in like Ang Mo Kio Central versus like at Esplanade lah. Okay? So that's how he's feeling. So that's why he was very struck that when he heard the pipa player, he's like, wow, very long never hear so nice music liao, you know. Then like it's like, okay, where is it from? And then that's where he dug up this story. And then so for me is I left my job again last year sometime, and then I'll be like, yeah, I actually got no budget for Esplanade. So that's how I relate to 5G. I mean, if not for COVID lah, but yeah, generally last time when I was like say employed, then I really go quite often. Yeah. So in this in a very small way, that's why I would like to read about what they write about, because the conclusion that they usually have is, forget it, life is short, let's just enjoy ourselves. And then I would think to myself like, you know, all these talented and great artists from the past, they also, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're also like that, right? Yeah. And then on another level, I do feel that like Bai Ji, even though he's a man and he's different from the Pipa Nu, right? From the Pipa girl. Like he's also having a shit life, you know? Like actually maybe it's not a women thing. Like maybe it's a shit life thing. Yeah. So like, yeah, let's not get too hung up about this whole feminism thing. And then you know, it's just like, yeah, we just try our best to make the best of what we have. Yeah. So that's the 5G level of yeah, the sentiments lah. Yeah.
I think it's nice in some sense because it seems like all four characters, in some sense, if we consider ourselves as characters,
yes,
are all sort of like having this existential crisis.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody is having existential crisis, but you just maybe don't know it. So that's my conclusion. Yeah. So then it wouldn't be a crisis for them. They just have these existential issues.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a fifth character. I might as well tell you. So it's like the fifth character is a calligrapher, who's like a calligrapher that I practice lah. His name is Wen Zhenming, and he's from the Ming Dynasty. Yeah, but he also is like he also an ex-public servant type. Then become artist. Yeah. So he's the calligrapher. Bai Ji is the writer, and then yeah. So there's a lot of different
layers
in this. Yeah,
and I think it's sort of part of your overarching. I look at your past books as well. It's a lot about, I think this self-encouragement theme seems to be very strong. I see your 2018 and then 2017 and then like 2016. There's always this thing.
Hang in there. Yeah, I think how to say I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like like what you said, right? Like, I mean, when it having these existential issues, then you want to turn left and you spiral down, or then like, you know, you pick yourself up and then, you know, you try to move on. And then yeah, I think the alternative is quite less attractive. So just try to or lack of better alternative. I think that's what somebody said. Like the positivity is for lack of better alternative. Yeah.
Okay, so I have one question regarding the artwork as well, because I saw that there's there's a earphones that's put on together with the artwork.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't get to hear it because I didn't know where should I touch it or not. So
was there there's not it's connected to a sport phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then what music would it be if you were to play it?
Actually, I listen to Spotify a lot. When I was writing, I probably was listening to some music. And the earphones there sort of refers to like people saying, there's the music that's happening somewhere. And I also left it there in the sense that actually nowadays there's quite hard to be like, for the both of us, it seems more natural for us to be in touch rather than not in touch. So it was a deliberate thing that we didn't get in touch. Do you realize that?
Yeah. I like it that we're not in touch. Then we deliberately like we want to get in touch, but we control ourselves. Okay, don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually the rest of them may not know, but then like we actually have mutual friends. Yeah.
Oh, is it? I didn't stop
you. Tan Wen. I told you what.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we have mutual friends, and like actually like reading from our bio also. That's another thing that I picked up, which is why I wrote the bio this way. Like she studied psychology, I studied psychology, and then what else? I don't know. I mean, you have a Lin, I have a Lin. Yeah. So
and your Ling, right? The Jing and the Jing, right, is usually how I write my Yu. So I mean, very few people write the Jing as a 繁体字 kind.
Oh, yeah. Like interesting.
There's too many similarities already.
Yeah, very odd similarities. Yeah. I think Jai has a question. Sorry, we didn't answer it earlier. I found a discussion on chauvinism in Chinese culture and traditional values very interesting. I also experienced before in the Chinese art scene, especially in the older gen. Did any of you, when practicing your craft, wushu or calligraphy, experience like this lineage issue and comparing which shifu or which school or clan you come from before? Like some people can be quite protective of their lineages and prejudice to others. What do you think? What's your take?
I think I'm not in the position to really answer because I am in that
sorry,
recognize the lineage. like for instance, like my clan, we have dual lineages linking back to Wong Fei Hong. So we are the authority in some sense in Singapore's case.
Well, I always feel it's like very like, you watch those jiang hu, those type of wuxia, then it's like, you go into this kind of thing, it's like jiang hu, they ask you, 你是哪一个派，你是哪一个师傅的, I find it very interesting, and I just want to ask like Lin or Julie, like is this coming from a bit of like this Confucius kind of what are the influences to this kind of thinking or behaviors, social behaviors, I guess.
Not sure if this is linked to the artwork or to the memoir.
No, it's just a general,
general question. I don't think it's just Confucianism. I think it's just social norms will just continue to take root.
Right.
Yeah. Because especially when placed in power, then you will not want to lose the power in some sense.
The political. For me, my understanding of this phenomenon comes that it could be attributable to how the craft, at least in arts, right, like visual arts, right, it's a very apprentice and master and apprentice situation. Okay, so like for a long time, so actually in calligraphy there's also like how to say it, the word is not 秘籍, but there is also that kind of manual.
口诀?
Yeah, 口诀.
心法.
对. Yes, okay. So 口诀 and 心法, which is basically the same terms as they use it lah in the martial arts, right? Which apparently I watched documentaries that says this before. It's like it's really passed down from generation to generation, and I mean, they may not pass it to other people that they don't trust lah. So there's this issue, and 天下第一行书, right? I mean 天下的书法, I mean the masters of calligraphy in the world, blah blah blah. Okay, but like there's one supposedly like the best calligrapher, right? Is Wang Xizhi from the Jin dynasty, but actually not like, you know, his teacher is this person known as Wei Furen, which is Lady Wei. So I'm like thinking that actually Chinese calligraphy, right, is not really inherently chauvinist, no, because the best 书法 in the world in all of history is written by this guy whose teacher is a woman, right?
Like that, I have to say that for martial arts, Yong Chun Xuan is invented by a female.
Yeah, Yong Chun Xuan is a female martial artist.
Yeah, you see, but the deal is that like these ladies, right, I think they didn't, like in Chinese art there's also a lot, right, but then they don't tend to leave their names even nowadays, right? Like women when you're married and then they don't have your own signature, your own surname and all, like, you know what I mean, like I don't know, yeah, like they just don't leave or sign their name so often. In women in Chinese history especially, so it may not be attributable, so to speak. Yeah,
I mean, you look even like on tombstones, usually like what Chen Men,
yeah,
small Huang
Shi, right?
Yeah.
They don't leave the full name all the time. Now that's actually one question mark that I have in life. If anybody got answer, please let me know. Which is like is it that important to be famous? You know, like to leave a name, you see, because in the opposite of Confucianism is Taoism, right? Okay, not opposite lah, but kind of like, you know, yeah, taken as opposite quite often. But yeah, so there's also that thinking that yeah, just don't let people know who you are, just anonymous lah, just chill one corner. Yeah. What do you say?
无为
Yeah, 无为 and then 就做影视, you know, like yeah, just you know, just yeah, like, relax one corner lah, just chill lah, don't let people find you. So I feel that, yeah, what, you know, maybe these women, so some like before we go and say like, hey, these women very silly lah, why they never leave their name, but maybe they're being smart, no, right? Like
I don't know. I think different eras have different kind of context. I think that time is very different. I mean, imagine Qing dynasty is still a 缠足 kind of. I mean, you 缠脚 that kind of era.
Oh right? Yeah, that's.
So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of elements. I think in our own in society nowadays, I think females can start to leave their names more lah.
Yeah, you see, it's a bit on this 缠脚 thing, right? Okay, let's say we take it as ear piercing lah. Okay, so ear piercing is also painful, right? Okay, so women pierce your ears. Then like now men also can pierce their ears like pretty much, right? And then if you don't allow men to pierce their ears, right? Then you bet, you know, how come men cannot pierce their ears? Correct. So on the other hand, right, like what if last time got men who want to like 缠他们的脚?
I think a bit far-fetched, right?
Yeah, but okay.
We have Wu Zetian as well, right?
We
still have Wu Zetian as a female emperor. Right? So I think there's a lot of exceptions. I think it really depends. Yeah. Not very. We cannot like really just particular cause to it.
Yeah, but I actually think 缠脚 is a bad thing. Okay, yeah. So put it on the record. Yeah, okay. Cynthia, raise your hand. You have a question or you want to tell us that time's up. Cynthia. Okay, maybe
you want to unmute yourself?
She's fine. Okay, anyways, like
oh yeah, sorry, I want to add also because I feel that earphone thingy for me, what I interpret it is is that it's like 知音.
Wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, I like to look at different puns even though maybe you didn't.
No, I mean I think the art is totally open for interpretation. And I think the previous talk, right, Jai was like asking about I was asking about like whether, people need to read the artwork statement before to understand the work, right? For me personally, I feel like no need like you just take the artwork, and then if it speaks to you, it speaks forever to you. Even though it's not what I intended as art. Yeah.
And also, I think even like I think there was some kids ran by, and then the artwork was not meant to be as hot how you wanted it to be displayed at the end, right?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. But I think that's also part of it's a calculated risk, right? Like for to be displayed in a public place, and then also to let people who otherwise may not be able to access contemporary art. I think all the artists, like we just we just try our best, or we just put it there and then see what happens, right? I mean, that's the nature of the project, right? It's the same as your memoir. Yeah, like you said that you may not feel that you're 100% sure about it yet, but then you put it out there, and then we read it, and then things happen. Ideas are exchanged, and then we can continue to talk a lot more about other things.
Yeah. I think Cynthia is back, right?
Cynthia?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, okay. We can. I also major in painting. So you guys raised a few points that I would like to address very shortly, just with a broad stroke. First, you mentioned a lot about our society being, especially Chinese society, being patriarchal, right? Actually, they found out at the Banpo village in Xi'an, a very small village. The archaeologists dug up a lot of things, and they found out very, very early, I think it must be 10,000 years ago, the society was actually matriarchal. And then our Chinese surname, the Xing, Hui Xing, Xing 什么 is a 女字旁加一个生孩子的生. Actually, children were named after their mothers long time ago. And then you talk about 缠脚. 缠脚 is introduced much later in Chinese history. It's during the Song Dynasty, which is much later. And the whole purpose was for men to control the women so that they stay at home and they don't go out. And moving back to the Tang Dynasty, it was a very liberal society, and women enjoyed as much liberty as men. And it was the golden era of the arts. That's all I want to add.
Nice. Thank you for that. Because when you say Tang Dynasty very liberal, like, their clothing all, wow, you can see the boots on.
Yes. The men were wearing organza.
Yeah, that's. I mean, thanks Cynthia for bringing up some very interesting points. Like you reminded me that even now, somewhere in China, there's still a matriarchal society. Like it's a tourist. Even now.
In today's China, parents can name the children can take the mother's surname.
Oh yeah.
Like, because of the only one child policy, that's why bo pian. I got friends also, they take both the surname and put together.
Oh.
And also for political reasons, some of these political leaders, they send their children overseas, right? They will name their children after their wife.
Why?
So that their children will not be identified overseas.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's
interesting.
I actually lived in China for a few years. You can ask Jai, Jai knows.
Oh, yeah. So actually,
I lived in China for 4 years. So like
4 years.
Yeah.
Which part of China?
I think what Cynthia says that really is looking at all these issues of feminism and patriarchy, and we really have to look in terms of culture, how culture evolves, where is it in the time, the anthropological aspect. I mean, a lot of very indigenous cultures from the beginning also matriarchal because of their spiritualities, living very close to Mother Earth, living with nature. And then after that, with agriculture, with like great cities being developed and political systems, you know what I mean? It gives more critical. So I mean, is a whole like this is a whole like topic that we could go into, and it's very
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
But
So I think, I think that chauvinism and all that, right? It's not just a Chinese thing, but it's also like it's a global phenomenon, lah. That, and I mean this leads to like there being the super you have to be super politically correct now, you know. There's this other issue as well.
Yeah, so like even on politically speaking, like even how the society is organized and which states is it also does influence on how patriarchy is expressed. So like also a hunter-gatherer society versus like a colonizing society, like society with huge like industries or agriculture, and then going off to colonize the country, or a country in war, like also like the Sun War in the period where they're always warring and men are going out to fight, and then they and so like all these like things boils down into their culture and biology, that like men dying all the time, and then so who's going to pass down the seed of the family. So like a lot of different factors I play to see how like all these gender dynamics are expressed in a society in any point of time in history, I guess. Yeah.
And then maybe to end off, I think really then it's part of what can we in this generation do, because right,
we have to prevent the voice, right? Like it's very, in a way now, like I feel like what I think Julian said just now, like what the women now, you all can choose a bit more. Like the man can choose, like I want to kiss my ear or something like that. There's a bit more choice, but although I say it's not perfect, there's still like a lot of things to be worked out. A lot of things that we not so good things we inherit.
I think that maybe every generation will feel they will have their existential problems within the whatever choices that they have, right? I mean, you can pierce your ears, also a problem. Then it will come to a time where then you're ostracized for not piercing your ears. Like men may be ostracized for not piercing their ears. Correct, right? Like it's just a like you state, like an issue of like all the different dynamics, the political, the anthropological, and everything coming into play. And then like what Lynn said, like every generation we push the boundaries a bit. I personally, I think that I'm not really into pushing boundaries. I'm just trying to live my life, like
这个隐士是吗？
I just want to like I mean I'm grateful for all the people who push the boundaries. I mean I don't see that I'm capable of pushing a lot of boundaries, but what I mean is like trying to just figure out where am I. Yeah, right.
But by doing art itself, you're pushing a boundary.
Yeah. I'm to you. That's your interpretation. You're free to interpret.
I mean, not everyone will be an artist in some sense, because I don't know, like being an artist itself is already going off the beaten path already.
On behalf of all the artists here, thank you.